A residential load center, sometimes called an electrical panel or breaker box, distributes electricity throughout a home. The selection of its location is very important for accessibility, safety, and code compliance. There are several potential locations within a house, some more suitable than others. Firstly, the basement is a common location. Basements often offer easy access for installation, maintenance, and repairs. They are generally out of the way, minimizing aesthetic concerns. However, basements can be prone to dampness, which could pose a risk to electrical equipment. It is important to ensure the area around the load center is dry and well ventilated. Secondly, a utility room is a good location, often chosen because the main electrical service enters the home in that room. This minimizes the distance between the meter and the load center, simplifying the wiring. Utility rooms are usually readily accessible and provide a dedicated space for electrical and mechanical equipment. Thirdly, garages can be suitable, particularly detached garages not used as living spaces. This placement keeps the electrical panel separate from the main living areas and simplifies wiring for garage-specific circuits. However, garages can be exposed to temperature fluctuations and potential vehicle damage, warranting careful protection of the load center. Fourthly, attics are generally not ideal. Attics are often difficult to access, making maintenance challenging. They are also subject to extreme temperature variations, which can negatively affect the performance and lifespan of electrical components. Fifthly, crawl spaces are also not recommended. Crawl spaces tend to be damp, dirty, and difficult to access, presenting safety hazards and hindering maintenance. Several factors should be considered when deciding on the best location. Accessibility is paramount. The load center must be easily accessible for routine maintenance, troubleshooting, and emergency shutoff. Obstruction should be avoided, and clear working space should be provided in front of the panel. Environmental conditions must be taken into account. The location should be dry, well ventilated, and protected from extreme temperatures. Exposure to moisture can lead to corrosion and electrical hazards. Excessive heat can degrade insulation and reduce the lifespan of components. Safety is a critical factor. The load center should be located away from flammable materials, water sources, and areas prone to physical damage. Proper grounding and bonding are essential to minimize the risk of electric shock. Code compliance is mandatory. Electrical installations must adhere to the National Electrical Code (NEC) and local building codes. These codes specify requirements for panel clearances, working space, and environmental protection. Considering specific NEC requirements, Article 110.26 addresses spaces about electrical equipment. This section requires sufficient access and working space around electrical equipment to permit safe operation and maintenance. Depth of working space is specified in Table 110.26a. The depth depends on the voltage to ground and the presence of exposed live parts on the opposite side of the working space. For example, for equipment operating at 150 volts to ground, a minimum working depth of 3 feet is required if there are exposed live parts on both sides of the space. Width of working space, as per 110.26 ATWA, the working space must be at least 30 inches wide or the width of the equipment, whichever is greater. This width allows personnel to safely maneuver while working on the electrical panel. Height of working space is addressed in 110.26a3. The working space must be clear and extend from the grade, floor, or platform to a height of at least 6.5 feet or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. Furthermore, 110.26b discusses clear spaces. The working space required by 110.26 must be kept clear and may not be used for storage. This ensures that personnel can safely access and work on the equipment without obstruction. Access to working space, as outlined in 110.26 cone personnel doors and working space access must be at least 24 inches wide and 6.5 feet high. Illumination is an important safety aspect. Section 110.26d requires sufficient illumination to permit safe and effective work in the area around electrical equipment. Headroom around the panel must be sufficient to allow safe movement and operation. Obstructions such as pipes, ducts, and structural elements should be avoided. Environmental factors such as moisture, dust, and corrosive substances should be considered. The location should be protected from these elements to prevent damage and ensure reliable operation. The load center should be securely mounted to a solid surface, such as a wall or floor. The mounting method must be appropriate for the weight of the panel and the expected forces. Proper grounding and bonding are critical for safety. The grounding system must comply with the NEC requirements and provide a low impedance path for fault currents. Wiring methods must adhere to code requirements. Cables and conductors must be properly supported, protected, and identified. The use of approved fittings and connectors is essential. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, must be correctly sized and installed to protect circuits from overloads and short circuits. Labeling is crucial for identifying circuits and components. All circuits must be clearly labeled to facilitate troubleshooting and maintenance. Regular inspections and maintenance are essential for ensuring the safe and reliable operation of the load center. Inspection should be performed by a qualified electrician. If the basement is chosen, measures should be taken to mitigate moisture. A dehumidifier can help control humidity levels. The load center should be mounted on a raised platform to protect it from flooding. If the garage is selected, the panel should be protected from vehicle impact. Bollards or other barriers can be installed to prevent accidental damage. If the utility room is used, the panel should be located away from water heaters, furnaces, and other appliances that could pose a hazard. Attics and crawl spaces should be avoided if possible. If these locations are unavoidable, special precautions must be taken to ensure accessibility, ventilation, and protection from environmental hazards. Consulting with a qualified electrician is essential for determining the best location for a residential load center. An electrician can assess the specific conditions of the home and ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and standards. Selecting a suitable location for a residential load center is a critical decision that affects the safety, reliability, and accessibility of the electrical system. By considering the factors outlined above and consulting with a qualified electrician, homeowners can ensure that their electrical panel is properly located and installed. The National Electrical Code NEC provides comprehensive guidelines for electrical installations, including the location of load centers. Compliance with the NEC is essential for ensuring safety and preventing electrical hazards. Some key NEC sections related to load center location include Article 110, which covers general requirements for electrical installations, and Article 408, which specifically addresses switchboards, switchgear, and panel boards. Article 110.3b requires that listed or labeled equipment be installed and used in accordance with any instructions included in the listing or labeling. This means that the manufacturer's instructions for the load center must be followed. Article 110.12 addresses mechanical execution of work. Electrical equipment must be installed in a neat and workmanlike manner. Unnecessary openings or unused portions of equipment must be closed to provide effective mechanical protection and prevent the entrance of foreign objects. Article 110.13 covers mounting and cooling of equipment. Electrical equipment must be firmly secured to the surface on which it is mounted. Equipment that depends on natural circulation of air for cooling must be installed so that the ventilation is not obstructed. Article 110.14 addresses electrical connections. Because poor electrical connections can cause heat and arcing, all electrical connections must be made with approved connectors and fittings. Article 230 covers services. This article specifies requirements for the service entrance, which is the point where electricity enters the building. The location of the service entrance can influence the placement of the load center. Article 240 covers overcurrent protection. This article specifies requirements for circuit breakers and fuses, which protect electrical circuits from overloads and short circuits. The load center must be equipped with appropriate overcurrent protection devices. Article 250 covers grounding and bonding. This article specifies requirements for grounding and bonding electrical systems to minimize the risk of electric shock. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for the safe operation of the load center. Article 312 covers cabinets, cutout boxes, and meter socket enclosures. This article specifies requirements for the enclosures that house electrical equipment, including load centers. Article 408 covers switchboards, switchgear, and panel boards. This article provides detailed requirements for the construction, installation, and wiring of load centers. In addition to the NEC, local building codes may also have specific requirements for the location of load centers. It is important to consult with local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable codes. When selecting a location for a residential load center, consider the long-term needs of the homeowner. The electrical system may need to be expanded in the future to accommodate additional loads. The location of the load center should allow for future expansion. Homeowners should be aware of the potential hazards associated with electricity. They should never attempt to work on electrical equipment unless they are qualified to do so. Electrical work should always be performed by a licensed electrician. Regularly inspect the load center for signs of damage or wear. Look for loose wires, corroded connections, and damaged components. If any problems are found, contact a qualified electrician to make repairs. Keep the area around the load center clear of obstructions. Do not store flammable materials or other items near the panel. Know the location of the main disconnect switch. In an emergency, it may be necessary to quickly shut off the power to the entire house. Label all circuits clearly. This will make it easier to identify circuits and troubleshoot problems. Educate family members about electrical safety. Teach them how to use electrical equipment safely and what to do in an emergency. Consider the aesthetic impact of the load center. While functionality is the primary concern, the panel should also be located in a way that minimizes its visual impact. The location of a load center can affect the resale value of a home. A well-located and properly installed electrical panel can be a selling point. The selection of a suitable location for a residential load center is a complex decision that requires careful consideration of many factors. By following the guidelines outlined above and consulting with a qualified electrician, homeowners can ensure that their electrical system is safe, reliable, and code compliant.